We're back, baby. It's a Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSapos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider. I got a gut. I woke up to the worst text. A friend of ours, Jesse Kretz, texted in a group. God, I wish I was waking up in Houston today. And that just like, I get these emails from the college football playoff because we would have been there for media. I see all these media people, doing their shticks and their runs and like stuff stuff we did last year, to be frank, like at the TCU Georgia beatdown. Made me a little jealous, but nonetheless, some good news. I want to say it's good news. We have guys going pro. I want to say that's good news on a preface.
Always good news.
Always good news.
That is always good news.
Yeah, Toss, if you want to give us the rundown of the latest of who's officially going pro, maybe anybody coming back, what's the roster looking like as it stands?
Yeah, so new news over the weekend from Chip Brown at 247. AD Mitchell is likely going to be going to the NFL draft. Well, he said that he's going to the NFL draft. We just haven't seen the statement from AD's mouth himself. But that was expected once we saw that JT Sanders was also going. He'll be the number 2 tight end behind Brock Bowers. We mentioned last week that Jonathan Brooks will be the number 1 RB by PFF rankings and by most people's big boards. So we're kind of just checking boxes on the position groups here. Xavier Worthy is going to be a top 10 wide receiver on most people's big board. Same thing with AD Mitchell. All 4 of those guys, and now T'Vondre Sweat is also getting some late buzz, are likely to be taken in the top 50, which would be tremendous. That's why they do it, right? They go play college football, yes, to win a national championship, but eventually make it to the NFL and pursue that larger goal of having a career in the NFL, potentially competing for a Super Bowl, beating the odds of playing in the NFL longer than 4 years too, right? There's so many other goals that these guys will now have. Bijan Robinson, shout out to him. He broke the Atlanta Falcons rookie scrimmage yards record. We all knew his talent. We even thought he was still underutilized, but glad for him that he got that rookie, glad that he got that rookie record. So I mentioned AD Mitchell, and then Barron Sorrell will be staying with the Longhorns, which is huge. Yep. He really, he took his time with that decision, and I think he was weighing going pro, and I think it was a heavy consideration for him, but he decided to stay at the 40 acres, and I think he's going to benefit from that, and certainly our defense will. And then one guy defensively that is also declared for the NFL draft who had 1 year left of eligibility is Ryan Watts, defensive back. So, it's a bummer to see guys like Watts and AD and JT head to the draft, especially when just for the Horns' sake, for our team for next year, we're going to be in great positions. But, we were teeter-tottering, are we going to have them? Or are we not going to have them? We know the final answer. We're rooting for their success at the next level. And they all did an absolute service to the university. And we're great leaders. I mean, just seeing guys pop up that are still on the roster, that are talking on social media about how important these guys were as leaders in the locker room for them and how they're taking on the mantle. I even saw Ryan Watts talking, over social with some of with Kobe Black specifically on Twitter, saying, we took it to the level. Now you guys got to take it to the next level. So that's really encouraging to see and to hear, obviously. And so we're in a good spot here, but that's just the current update on some of our guys.
Yeah, I think it's bittersweet. At the end of the day, like, you want these guys to go pro. You want them to have success and represent the Longhorns in the NFL. I mean, all these guys do it. And, when Cameron Dicker and Justin Tucker and Quandre Diggs, and, it's funny I mentioned the kickers first, but, when these guys are repping, in the NFL, like, it just looks better on our program. And at the end of the day, like, the ultimate goal for these kids is to get to the league, make the big bucks, and, provide for their families and make this a career. And it just shows that our university is a great stepping stone and a great developmental place for them to get there. And when you're turning out top 50 draft picks, year after year, then that's how you become a team like Alabama and Georgia and, at times LSU, because those guys don't miss a beat any draft. There's always, at least 2 to 3 Bama players drafted in the first round. And there's probably, close to 4, 5, 6 of them in the top 50. I mean, there was that year when LSU won the Natty with Joe Burrow. They had like 13 players get drafted. Like, well, that's insane, and the fact that we're sitting here with confidently probably 7 to 8 guys that are going to get drafted in the NFL draft this year, whether it's a day 1 or day 3 pick, that were, big playmakers for the university next year. But it's next man up. It's that mentality where you come to Texas to get your strength and your tools to get to the next level, and ultimately try to win a national championship and win a conference championship, which they checked that box off. But now these new guys that are coming in, and whether that be for the transfer portal, whether that be guys that are already in the locker room that are stepping up to get another year under their belt with the Longhorns, or guys that are fresh out of high school, like there's going to be some guys that come in here, and we're in the best place that I've ever felt I've been as a Texas Longhorn, to be completely honest. I mean, the way the receiving room is shaking up, we're super high on every single guy in that receiving room. Obviously, AD and Xavier are big subtractions from that, but we're plugging and playing here, boys. I mean, Jonte Cook, we're high on him. Matthew Golden, Ryan Wingo, like these are top playmakers. These are guys that will probably get drafted next year. Not Jonte because he's too young, and not Ryan, but Matthew Golden, like that's a guy who can legitimately go, second round next year and be a speed threat that a lot of teams are itching for in the NFL. The one area of concern, or I would say two areas of concern on this roster, is defensive line interior. And I know it's huge. We got Alfred Collins coming back, and he can kind of step in there and be that guy. And he plays a little bit of the edge and a little bit of the nose as well. And then tight end. And at the end of the day, Jatavian's a guy that Colt McCoy wished he had on his team. And we're sitting here, and it's hard to hit on a tight end. It just really is. As you see how the NFL draft goes and you see how college goes, there's only a couple of top guys that are undoubtedly like these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Gunnar Helm has stepped in pretty well, but would like to see someone be like the premier guy at tight end.
Yeah, I would say for me, tight end's the biggest position, because on the interior of the defensive line, I trust Alfred Collins. He was a guy coming into the season we had high hopes for, and it's great that he's staying. Vernon Broughton staying, which is nice.
Troy Carter's transferring.
Yeah, yep. in the prior draft class, in the prior recruiting class, we had Sadir Mitchell, who was a big recruit for us. I'm hoping he can step up. Dre Bledsoe, step up on the interior of the defensive line. Jameer Caldwell was a guy from Houston in the transfer portal on the defensive line, a big body that we're looking at. Alex January is a guy in this class that we love. And plus, Bo Davis, you got to trust Bo Davis, who it looks like he's staying, which Bo knows. So that's been a real benefit for us with him staying. And look, at the end of the day, you said it best, Nick. We want to be a program where guys come in and they're like, I can go farther in football than just college football and just, the NIL space, right? And now I can go and get drafted. And we're having how many guys are talking about in the top 50 picks? We love where AD and Worthy and Sanders can go. We're high on where Sweat can go. Byron Murphy, if he tests really well as a pass rusher, he can go in there. Jahdae Barron's going to get drafted, and Jalen Ford's going to get drafted. And we think Jay Witt can get drafted, especially after watching what Puka Nacua, what the Rams had to say about him. We know Jay Witt's a similar type of guy as far as what he brings to the table mentally and reliability. So Sark's challenge as an offensive mind is going to be, how do I make this roster work? How do I make it work with Moore, with Niblett, with Wingo, with Jonte Cook, these young receivers? How do I make it with a two-headed backfield with Baxter? Is he really going to be that premier guy that we all think he can be? Jarrett Gibson coming in, obviously Jaden Blue returning. Also, Jake Majors announced that he's returning for his senior season at the offensive center position, which is huge. And so we pretty much are returning 4 guys in the offensive line, and Quinn, which is probably the most important, that core coming back. So I'm really excited about that. And I was looking at our last year's recruiting class. In that class is Derek Williams, right? In that class is Malik Muhammad. In that class is Anthony Hill. These guys are already making major contributions. We're getting a Colin Simmons into the building. We're getting a Trey Moore already coming into the building. We're talking to a guy like CJ Daniels from Liberty, who had a double-digit touchdown season at receiver, who had 1,000 yards receiving at receiver. Even if we get him, he may not be Xavier Worthy or AD Mitchell, but he's going to be a productive guy with good college experience. So I really we're not losing a lot of talent. There's still talent now. There's always the guys can always transfer, right? Like we saw AD Mitchell transfer after the national championship, which is crazy. So guys may look at the Texas Longhorns when AD officially announces that he's going pro and go, okay, Worthy's gone, AD's gone. Yes, they have guys like Niblett, Cook, Wingo, and Moore and Golden already there, but they lost their two best receivers. And if I'm a wide receiver and I saw where those two guys are going, I may want to change, reroute and go to Texas, which is always a possibility. So I think the recruiting trail is great. It's great that we're keeping Bo Davis. We're adding a co-defensive coordinator, Johnny Nansen from Arizona, who had the Arizona Wildcats in the top 3 in scoring defense in the Pac-12 and the strongest Pac-12 we saw in the finale of the Pac-12 this past season. And that's really, and he has experience coaching with Sark. So you're right, Nick. This is the best we've ever seen this program. We're adding so much, and all our subtraction is in such a positive way. You want to see guys go pro, and you want to see Longhorns on Sunday in big draft picks and big spots.
Yeah, I like the Nansen hire. I think it's obviously great when you're adding someone that has had a historic career, being able to put stuff out there like in the Pac-12 and scoring defense, and also having a history. But I think the big thing here is getting that recruiting pipeline in Southern California. I think that at the end of the day, like that's huge. Being able to recruit nationally and not only in Texas is something that really makes you a blue blood, big program that can contend. Is getting guys from all over the nation who want to come in and make a difference. And, the Southern California recruiting area, it's been dominated by Oregon, by USC, by UCLA, by Stanford, by Washington. Like, it's time now we get in there and get guys. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Xavier Worthy's from Fresno. We nabbed him. That proves good on our track record. Bijan's from Arizona. But yeah. I mean, there's some studs, at Mater Dei, at St. Bosco, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. And we already got Brandon Baker from Mater Dei, which is great.
Exactly. So I mean, there's some guys out there.
Yeah. Well, we had some shout outs, by the way, Toss, in the comment section for your mustache. Your mustache has been getting a lot of run recently. I don't remember what you look like without it. So I think that's a good compliment. But you're right, Nick. Like, having a guy like that who's got experience recruiting on the West Coast, and who really, look, he proved his chops. This was a really tough Pac-12 this year. Oregon was good. You had Arizona, they were good, obviously, but Washington's playing for the national championship. USC still had Caleb Williams. Like, going against these programs is really difficult. So bringing in a guy like Nansen, kudos to PK. I don't know how much say he had, but I'm sure it's like, it's a bit of an ego thing to be co-defensive coordinators with a guy and bring him in and be like, you know what, I'm down for the betterment of the team to do this with another dude. And I'm looking at the rest of our staff. Like, we still have so many amazing position coach players. Like, everyone wants to stay and finish the job, and having that 12-team playoff really helps us next season. So you got to feel great.
What I will say is that I was raised by my stepdad and my dad, and I turned out just fine. So co-defensive coordinators, this could be a blessing in disguise for the defense.
Yes, it really could be. And yeah, again, the buzz around us, it's sad we're not playing in the national championship. It's a really big bummer. And I'm hoping this team, and it sounds like this team with the finish what we started mentality, it always reminds me what Derek Johnson said to us on our show of like how that next year, how they almost walked so that next group could run. And we needed to get over that hump. We needed to win the Big 12 championship, which was the goal this year. We needed to get to the college football playoff, not almost get there. And we emphatically got there. And we were, like Quan said, in a C game, seconds away from, playing in Houston in a quote unquote home game again. So really exciting stuff. Great that our program is in an awesome direction. And yeah, can't say enough good things.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts, gents?
Well, I feel like we're not done. There's still a lot to be done here on the recruiting aspect. I mean, there was the early period of National Signing Day. There'll be another one come February. But the transfer portal is not done either. They're also taking a look at Dorian Singer, who's a wide receiver out of USC. Josh, you know pretty well, covering USC, and then LaJonte Wester from FAU. So they want guys. They want guys in this receiving room to fill it out, to make it as competitive as possible, and come into spring with a true competition. And that's what you want. Iron sharpens iron, and ultimately the best guy's going to play. But you want to take the best opportunities possible to get some speed out there, some big playmakers when you head to the SEC, because Bama's going to come with it. Georgia's going to come with it. LSU's going to come with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then quickly on the Dorian Singer thing before you go, Toss. Dorian Singer was at Arizona before USC. obviously Nansen coming in, like they had somewhat of a connection. I know it's two opposite sides of the ball. And he was a guy that had 1,100 yards as a sophomore, was leading the Pac-12 as a sophomore, and he was a top receiver in the Pac-12 as a sophomore, and they completely botched, I thought, the utilization of Dorian Singer in Southern California. So bringing a guy like that in there would be massive.
I don't know how you go from 1,100 yards to 289 yards.
It was dumbfounding. Like they just didn't use him. And they have good guys there. They had Taj Washington. They had Zachariah Branch as a freshman who was a beast. But Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, came on really strong throughout the season, but still he couldn't see the field. And I don't blame him for transferring. And if we can pick him up, I really think he fits that. He may not be AD Mitchell, but he fits that role really nicely.
Wester would be nice. He'd be a guy with 1 year of eligibility, still him away from Tom Herman. He had 1,100 yards this last season, 8 touchdowns, 108 receptions. I mean, that's absurd. That's NFL type receptions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just interesting with the USC of another, with Singer transferring, and obviously Malachi Nelson transferred last week. It was the 2023 number 1 QB.
Kind of head scratcher going to Boise State.
I'm loving it. Wild. I'm in it.
It's wild. Lincoln in shambles over there. Nobody's going to be disappointed about that, especially not the Longhorn fans. I did want to say, one, I think it's, while we will have a lot of youth, some of these guys were a part of the depth this season, right? So they saw us win. They were a part of that winning culture. So going into next season, maybe not having as much on-field experience as we looked coming into this year, I feel a lot better about being in that position than we have in the past few years, because I trust our coaches, I trust our talent, and I trust the culture that we've built. And so I think that while we will be really young going into next season, if Quinn comes back, which he still has to finalize that decision, but all signs point to him coming back, the veteran presence on the line and with our quarterback will make me feel very at ease, even if our playmakers on the outside are a little bit younger. And I just wanted to throw this out to you guys. I don't know if this is true or not. I have no idea that Jonte Cook might be changing his number from 2 to 1. And I kind of love when a program has like representative numbers that mean something, right? Where it's like, if you're wearing number 1, you are the number 1 guy as a wide receiver at Texas. Like obviously that's what X was wearing. And Cook would go to 1 and Golden would go to 2 or something like that is what I saw in the rumor mill. So would you guys be all in on that? Or were you, 2 is a swaggy number.
I definitely like the, kind of how the Cowboys have like the 88 club,
55 in USC.
Yeah. It's super cool. It's a tradition. I don't like the idea of like being like, that is our number 1 guy, because ultimately, like, if you look at last year, like, I don't think Xavier was our number 1 guy. Like, I think they shared it, AD was the guy at times. X was the guy. Jatavian was the guy at times. He wore 0. At the end of the day, like, I don't want to single out one guy. So if it means I'm 1 because I'm the guy, then not a fan of that. But I do like the traditional style of like, passing down. I mean, like Q said, like guys at Texas, the 6 club, like you have like your own kind of like brotherhood fraternity within the Texas Longhorn,
crazy,
culture. Like the 6 is, like I'm number 81. Like, I keep in touch with all those guys.
Yeah.
And the way that it was presented was not like Sark is saying that he gets number 1, right? And that means something. Like Chief Bucket Getter, who just is in the comments, said he was in a fraternity. That's great. Let us know which fraternity it was. Just kidding.
Actually, he was in a fraternity for about 10 years, which was pretty impressive. He was a
little Van Wilder experience for Chief Bucket Getter.
He was the Van Wilder of the Zeta Beta Tau fraternity at the University of Texas.
We love that.
Yeah, he was like one of the best basketball players in the history of the program at ZBT, and the lucky lefty, people would call him.
Don't run into him at LA Fitness. It's going to be a bad day for you.
At the JCC, it's the last person you want to see there in the post. So yeah, really good for Chief Bucket Getter.
I got to get a basketball court at my wedding. Maybe he'll come.
Exactly. Get a microphone that guy can't stay away from a microphone and a basketball court. Never seen one he didn't like. But yeah, no, for real. Like this, you can't say it enough. It's really exciting. If we get Dorian Singer, it'd be awesome. And the program is in such a nice, fun spot. And the 1s is cool.